Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Dragon Ball Nation. Now today I'm going to be giving you guys an in-depth analysis on the newly released images that we have for Dragon Ball Super's DVD/Blu-ray release, where Toei Animation has fixed up the animation in primarily from what we're seeing here in episode 5, but presumably the whole release that we have here. But I'll be going through 4 pictures at a time because, well, I don't want to smush the pictures and ruin the image quality entirely. But I'll be going in and looking at all these little details that they've added in. On the left we have the original release on television, and on the right we have this DVD release. So we'll see what they've improved and maybe not touched up upon in episode 5 specifically. So first off, this top picture here, you can see here around Goku's hand. Obviously, yes, I'll be doing this drawing. We'll see how well I can do. Obviously, you know, you look on this end, they added, what they really mainly did here is they mainly added a lot more, and this goes for pretty much all of the images. The biggest thing that I think they did that actually made a lot of them look better, and such a subtle change, is the shadowing. The shadowing on the hand is much more, it shows much more definition, much more depth. Not only that, but, you know, obviously his pinkies aren't completely deformed, or his fingers aren't completely deformed here. There's actual detail. They do add plenty of detail in many of these shots. Hair, a lot more natural looking, not as crudely drawn. This is a very crudely drawn image right here. That is not how you make an arrow. That is a very crudely drawn image. This is almost like I drew it or something. I'm not a good drawer, and I don't have a mouse that lets me draw very well. So maybe I'm not one to criticize. But this image right here, definitely much better on the right. Definitely much better on the right here. On the bottom though, another tactic they use here is right here with the blur. You see they blurred this to kind of, obviously they moved them forward a little bit as well. These shots actually might not even be completely in the same exact spot in the episode. They could be a couple frames apart. But another thing they did do in a lot of these images is add a blur effect to kind of mask some of that lack of detail. And this wasn't really a bad shot of Beerus. Goku definitely looks a bit derpy. He looks fine here. There still is a bit of depth missing there. There's a lack of detail with the depth still. Maybe that's something they couldn't quite get. You see right here where he's kind of past Beerus. It looks a little bit strange. Here he's just all over the place. Look at this. He's all over the place. The next set of images we have here, very similar to the last one we just looked at. The depth is just missing here. They have him way too close. This space between Beerus, far too close to him. Here, they have a nice space in between both of them. Very nice spacing. That was, I guess, their kind of way of getting in depth. But the thing I noticed, maybe they reanimated the background, I'm not sure. But the bush here and the bush there are in definitely some different positions. These might not be the exact same frames. It's unclear. I do want to note though that Beerus does look a little bit less detailed in this shot. You can kind of see here on his back area. You look at the back of both images, I think his back is a bit more detailed than the original, but you know, especially in the neck area up here, you can see some more wrinkles. A little bit better shading, I think, in the newer one, but overall, Beerus is around the same level of detail, but Goku's definitely been improved. As for the next image, not a huge improvement. It's mainly in Goku's facial features here, obviously being considerably better in this shot. The rest of it's about the same. The clothing, it's almost like he's wearing a jumpsuit here. Here, you can clearly see it's his natural dogi. He's actually not even, he doesn't even have his symbol here whatsoever. It's almost as if he's wearing a jumpsuit, especially in the groin region. It's almost like he had a zipper there or something. Moving on to the next shot, I'm sure you guys can notice that this is going to be completely different video that I usually do, and it's going to be much longer than usual, and I'm actually in my image editing software just so I can draw these lines. We have nice blur here. That's pretty much a big part of what they did is they These are things that are going to make it look much better in motion with these blur effects to kind of mask some of the crap animation that they had before. Very crudely drawn wrinkles here for Goku. Very crudely drawn wrinkle lines that we had here. Much nicer in this image though. Much nicer, the hair especially. A lot nicer than what we have here. Let me finish my arrow. I have to be OCD about it. Beerus, and a lot of these shots, honestly, Beerus is essentially identical to his previous shots from the TV release. Goku's really the main improvement here. Same goes for this one down here. Beerus is about identical. I can't see many differences, if any at all, honestly. Goku definitely had a major improvement in the face department, though. That is clear. Also, definitely some more detail on his dogi. Much better on there. It's very, very sharp looking here. Much more fine and softer here. And muscle definition, all that stuff is much better. Pretty much what you guys can obviously see with your own damn eyes. Here, again, with these images, very subtle improvements with the shadowing. As I say, very subtle. But at the same time, he is very improved in the softness of his clothes. As to this one, where it looks very sharp around the elbow. It's very jaggedy. His clothes, again, very jaggedy around this area here. Very jaggedy. But again, these are still shots. But this was an episode that was notorious for how bad it actually looked. Again, the arm, I don't really think they improved his arm too much from what it was here before. Maybe smoothed it out a little bit. But the blur adds such a little bit of detail that you're not going to notice it. Shadowing, a strange lack of, either this was an unnecessary shadowing right here in this image, and they just decided to leave it out with this one. I'm not quite sure. Not quite the same thing with the image below. This, no blur is necessary here. They just straight up improved detail all across the board. Here compared to this Goku, again, Beerus exactly the same. Not really need to be improved. I'm not sure why this episode was so mean towards Goku himself. It's definitely a very strange thing indeed. But again, generally, the same thing that's been happening with a lot of these things. A little bit better shadowing around this area where I just pointed. As to here, a little bit more realistic, more consistent. Just a lot more detail and depth to his hair as well. And we're coming up to definitely an infamous shot here where Goku looks like a complete Neanderthal. And they really did a damn good job touching it up, again with the blur effect. But just his face itself, just much better than whatever you call this here. I don't know what that face is supposed to be. His kanji is completely different looking than what it is in the final, I guess you could say now the final product. Some lack of shadowing here, or just shadowing taken out. It honestly looks better without the shadowing. That shadowing isn't even necessarily natural right here, to be quite honest. As well, I mean, the V-neck, I guess you could say, in his dogi definitely looks a bit odd in that release. Definitely was a little bit weird on the left there. This shot, you really couldn't fix a whole lot with it. Literally the only difference that I can spot, this is all the same on both images just about. I think there's a slight improvement. Maybe there's not at all on this end. The only thing they added was the blur effect. I guess it was just so broken. His arm was just so broken and gelatinous that they couldn't really fix it too well. Now this image is a very subtle difference. It's the first far away shot we really see. Goku still kind of has a chicken bone looking arm in both sides. His dogi, the bottom of his dogi does look a bit like sweatpants in this shot, and they kind of touched it up here. The far away shots, I mean, you can't really expect a whole lot of improvements, but they did just add a bit more finer detail, especially in his face. Right here he's got the face. King Kai looks almost identical. Almost. He's very subtly more detailed. The face and on his kanji. Definitely a little bit more detailed in the DVD release. And you know, the halo's a bit different. Just a little bit of a subtle difference on the halo there. This shot below, though, I don't know what they did. I mean, they had a blur effect before. They kind of amplified it here and just made Goku's leg completely stretch out as to where it's a stub there. One thing that I guess they're trying to show depth, but I don't think it was that necessary. On this shot in the original, you can see that they did a little something with his foot there. Not sure what it was. It's kind of almost looking like just he has a pointy clown shoe or something. I have no idea. But this shot still looks a bit funny. They did, in fact, improve his hair, and that is not at all how you are supposed to make a circle around someone's head. That is somewhat of a circle compared to this one, of course. There's definitely more detail there. That can definitely be said. Now this shot's a little bit interesting. They did pretty drastically change the facial animation on this one. You know, Goku had this little bit of a derp look. I honestly didn't think this one was that bad. The only problem with it was this shot actually went on for a while. And what I'm guessing is this shot right here, because this face right here in this shot was the only. It was going on for about, I think, 5 seconds in the shot in the episode, and it was just that face the whole time. This one, I'm assuming that what they did was they probably had a gradual change in his face, so it looked a bit more natural. His hand, more detailed than it was before. I think the blur effect's a little bit more effective. There's something going on with his chest right here. He was fine here, a little bit blocky, but down on the bottom, just, again, more fine detail. Beerus essentially left unchanged. Same with this picture. Just more detail on Goku's face here, though. Definitely a lot more detail. Really just in the face. There wasn't a whole lot of difference down here. Very subtle changes, but nothing that really needed to be touched up upon. Again, same with this shot. Just generally just more detail. It does look a little bit funny right here on his dogi. Right there. It does look a little bit funny where the deep V kind of comes in. As you guys can see when I quickly delete that. I think that one actually looks slightly worse, but you know, I'm not knocking it or anything. It definitely looks better overall. This isn't going in depth and going and insulting the animation or anything like that. This shot's actually quite a bit different. Beerus is basically essentially in the same position. I think it's around the same scene. I think it's about the same frame. The bush is in the same place. They haven't moved the camera or anything like that. But Goku's certainly in a more orthodox, I think it's actually a stranger position than what he is in the original release here on the left. Beerus, same thing. I honestly like the way Beerus looks originally. He has a little bit more shadowing. It just looks like he has more depth before. I'm not sure to what extent they redrew some aspects. They might have redrawn some scenes entirely. Other ones they may have just added more detail, cut off some bits. I'm not sure how the process was done, but this does show that there isn't always going to be 100% guaranteed improvements, but like I said, this could be from a different frame in the episode. Down here, however, there is a definite decrease in quality, in my opinion, with this shot here. Again, could be a different frame. I am unclear at this time. This shot I do think looks a bit more detailed from the original release. I don't know what that shape is supposed to be that I just drew. This is a very interesting one because I think both shots honestly look pretty good. I'm going to refer to both of these at once. These two shots definitely look fine, as do these ones. They both look great. This one on the bottom does have a little bit more detail, a little bit cleaner look, more detail in the hair, a little bit better shadowing. But overall, honestly, before it wasn't that bad. Up here, I do think Beerus looked a little bit better before. I think he does have a little bit cleaner artwork on the bottom here, but I like the shadowing up here. There was nothing wrong with this before. A little bit of an odd choice to change it, but again, unknown how these pictures came to be. It could be different, maybe a different frame. Could not, maybe it's not the exact same frame. We don't know, and yes, you're gonna probably hear that a lot in this video because some people will forget. This shot right here wasn't too bad. I mean, quite honestly, it was a little bit goofy. I don't remember how long the shot went out, but this one definitely in the DVD release does look quite a bit better. Definitely some finer detail there. Down here, we see the dirt face that's very infamous with the depth and everything. virtually unchanged. I can't see any change whatsoever. What they did was they tried to fix the depth by adding a blur effect, but had no attention made to the face himself. I guess it was just an unfixable failure. Now this one's a little bit of a funny one as well. Here on the original release, you know, he missed his shot. It wasn't that big of a deal. An in-between shot does not honestly look that bad, I don't think. Here in the new shot, they had a little bit of a blur effect around his hand. He's got some weird wrist flick, and I'm not going to play that song in case you're wondering. In case you get the reference here, I'm not going to play that song. Beerus, now where he had his feet jumping over Goku before, they add the blur effect around here as well. A little bit more jagged edges, I think, in this shot. Hair's a little bit better, but just jagged edges overall, but there is a blur effect, and it's kind of just an altered shot in general. Down here, the very infamous, this one's very infamous, is this derp face. Here, in the original, definitely has met some improvements right here. I could tell this is basically the same frame they pretty much redrew entirely on the right here. And it looks like they just completely changed what Goku was doing. Still trying to hit Beerus, but completely different position altogether. This shot was interesting. I've actually never seen this image on the left here before of Goku. I don't know in God's name what's going on here with his Dogi, or, you know, what this crudely drawn effect was supposed to be. Was that supposed to mean he was going fast? This is basically the same shot as what we had before in the previous image, except Beerus has now left the image essentially here. Same thing on the left, but they added a blur right here on the right. But Goku's got quite the thigh gap going on there. I really am very confused of what that is right there. On the bottom, very simple image, far away shot. On the left here, very low detail, but that's not a problem when it's such a far away shot. But they did actually take the time to detail a little bit more here in the DVD release. Here as well, I don't think it's really a bad shot. I think Goku's eyes are a little bit mismatched for what his emotion's supposed to be. But if you guys can see right here, definitely a bit different. Definitely shows more anger, even in the mouth. A little bit more of a frown, a furrowed brow. A little bit more detail in the hair. The hair wasn't too bad before. It was still, you know, nice and spiky as it should be. But everything's about similar, just changes in the face. Here, the only thing that's changed here, guys, there's only one thing that they changed, and guess what it is? The blur effect. They added a blur effect here, as with this image, they don't have one whatsoever. Now, this shot was quite improved to a certain degree. He had a very strange face here when he was had his arms, you know, almost to his waist. A little bit of an awkward pose for him there. When I think he was charging Beerus, I believe. And here they did improve it. Again, could be a different frame, might not be, might be redrawn altogether. Definitely an improvement. There's a lot more detail, especially in the hair. In the original shot, does look a bit funky up at the top here. Definitely, and here it's definitely smoothed out. You can see it straight up and everything. Looks very nice. This one as well. That face looks very familiar to me. It's not Goku. I don't know who it's supposed to be, but it does look a bit familiar. His hair's just not very detailed. Same thing with his Dogi, his arms. Here it's much better shadowing, much better hair detail, and everything. In this shot, very similar things. Again, better shadowing on this side, much better shadowing on the side of the DVD release. Surprisingly, they didn't add any blur effect or extra blur effect that they've been traditionally doing here. Over by the leg they did actually. As for this shot, they have less detail on Goku's leg. But overall, it's about the same, just more detail on his Dogi in general in comparison to the DVD release. Also in the image below, that's honestly essentially the same shot with, quite honestly, very almost unnoticeable detail. They didn't really need to go and touch up these specific scenes. I can't actually pinpoint where the difference is. I just think maybe from what I can see, maybe a little bit of better shadowing. I think the only thing I can see really is that they fixed his eye. I guess that would, because his eye here on the left, his eye here, right here, his left eye on the right side. Just better. The mouth's a little bit more detailed on the DVD release, and that's about it for this image. This one, again, I don't really think it needs to be touched up, and there's not much to say. The only real difference here, quite honestly, is the face. The face is a little bit different on the right image, a little bit more detailed, but when you're watching it, you're not really going to notice anything like that, so I don't think it was a whole necessary upgrade. Whis on the bottom here, I don't really, quite honestly, see any difference at all. I think his eyes are very slightly different here on the right as to where they are on the left. I think they're very slightly different, but nothing really noticeable whatsoever. Here, what they did was they fixed Goku's eyes when he's Super Saiyan 3. His eyes are a little bit, the brows are much more noticeable. Definitely much more noticeable here on the right. I was actually using the eraser tool right there. What I did was, when I'm looking at his eyes, you can definitely see there's more depth in them. The lightning is about the same. I don't notice any difference with the electricity. The hair is more detailed, better shadowing, all that good stuff. The kanji is a bit slimmer looking, a bit slimmer text. Definitely more recognizable, more depth in the clothes, everything, just like we've been seeing. Down here, the only difference I can see is that they blurred out that terrible looking Goku. Now, all they did here on the right side is all they did in comparison to the left, they add more shadowing like we've been seeing. I think a very slight more of a blur effect with just the lines, the dashes that we see here, right here, and a little bit more of a shine, I guess, to his face. This shine right here where I'm dotting as to where it is here. It could just be because they added more shadowing and you can see the shine on Goku a little bit better. Not a big difference. Here, I honestly don't notice any difference between the two shots whatsoever. Again, here, all they really did on the right here is more shadowing around the hair here, a little bit more depth to his face, a little bit more detail on the kanji and the dogi all together. Beerus, again, an unchanging creature in this episode, completely static, just does not change with this animation at all. Same thing on the bottom, exactly as we see on the top here. All it is extra shadowing, a little bit more detail, a little bit more softness to the kanji and the gi. Again, the trend that they're having with the Super Saiyan 3 scene that I'm noticing, and that was actually some of the worst looking parts of the episode, is what they're really just basically doing is just touching up the shadows, and that's about it. They're not changing the overall character model, I guess you could say, the character himself. It really is about the same. This one is a bit different around the jaw region. They definitely changed that up. Add the blur effect here, of course. Beerus unchanging as he always is. A god cannot be changed. The hair about the same. It's actually not too changed at all except for towards the top here. Now this one's actually quite interesting. They just honestly, and they didn't really change much whatsoever at all, it seems. Actually, this is actually weird, and I don't remember this. This is just a darker image, and on the right with the DVD release, we just see that they lit it up. I can't see any increases in details, no added blur effects. They already had a blur effect down here. It's very strange. Here, though, unchanged image, except for the fact that they do have a blur effect. You can actually see across this line where they added it, not to overlap Beerus' hand, of course. They kind of had that split there. Very simple effect. But it does add when it's in motion. This shot, again, same thing, a little bit different, and I think this might be a different frame, mainly because this frame, nothing is there for Goku to hit. Here, Beerus is essentially catching Goku's hand that now has the added blur effect. I don't know if that was drawn in or if that's from a slightly different frame. That's unclear. There's also a lack of dirt effects, although that actually could be the blur. As you see, there's a bit of dirt and dust here. That could just be it being blurred. This shot over here, pretty much identical to the one before except for the face. That's about the only difference we have here. Everything else is essentially the same. Very subtle detail added onto the dogi. Nothing really done to the hair, just mostly the face there. Can't honestly see any differences with this image. I think a very slight. What they did was with the scratches and the markings around his head and eyebrows, definitely was emphasized in the DVD release as it was not quite prevalent in the original release. The aura about the same, everything else is quite the same other than these scratch marks around here that are quite more, like I said, prevalent in the Blu-ray. This shot, very similar to each other. Again, more shadowing, pretty obvious. What they did actually here is they reduced some shadowing around his neck area. You know, his neck is much more shown off. Detail honestly is about the same. Very subtle changes around the face. You know, the lines are a little bit more prevalent. A little bit more detail around the eyebrows. A little bit better of a mouth shape going on here. And a bit more detail around the chin actually. If you can notice his chin here. Pretty different. You know, this looks goofy. It's almost like Jigglypuff wrote all over this or something like that. Also down with the image here. Basically the only thing I did is they added, I think they added a little bit more of a blur effect. It's hard to say. They definitely with Beerus here. Beerus has a added blur effect from what he had in the original release. And Goku has a couple more lines of, I believe this is part of his aura, that are actually missing in the original shot. A little bit better detail on his hair, of course, that we've been seeing, that trend. And, of course, as you guys can notice, he's missing shadowing here. That is now added, and it just looks a lot better in the full release we have here. This shot where Goku almost looks like he's a wannabe Sonic the Hedgehog character or something on the left here. He's got something going on with his face, his hand. I don't know what's going on with his wrist. They did not fix that in the next shot. They added a little bit more detail in his biceps. Definitely that can be shown here. Electricity is pretty much untouched, but the electricity did look good prior to the upgrade anyways. It always looked good. The face is definitely a bit better, but still a little bit funny looking, but nothing too big. It's definitely a pretty significant step up to what it was before, but that's pretty much what this episode is overall. This image right here below it, what this one did is just a little bit better shadowing around like the nose, a little bit better on the eyes. Actually some lines here are removed. You can see these lines right here, not prevalent here, but above there are lines, but they're a bit different from the original release. Pupils a bit more enlarged in this version here, and better shadowing overall. Here, subtle but much needed improvements to this image. I think the subtle improvements, obviously more lines around his hair, a lot more lines to show more detail in the hair. That was very plain looking in the original image. His hands doing the Kamehameha is about the same, but just a bit more better detail overall, but nice subtle changes that do add a lot to it. Same thing goes here, more lines, better pupil depth, everything looks a lot better. More lines in the hair, all that good stuff. Not a whole lot different with this. A funny thing to actually note is there seems to be a part right here that's actually cut off of his aura that is not prevalent in the original release. His aura actually meets the start of his Kamehameha. For some reason here on both ends it kind of cuts off. I don't know what that is. It's just like they erased that part. Maybe that was an editing error. I'm not quite sure. It looks like it honestly kind of clips through him at this part. Up here kind of clips through his body. These images look about the same, but I think overall this one's just a little bit more appealing, a little bit more consistent. But it'd be such an in-between shot that you wouldn't notice. Same thing here. I can't notice a whole lot of difference. The aura definitely stretches up farther. The wave, as to here, it kind of just goes to this end, so there's quite a difference between these two lines right there. Definitely a lot larger of an aura, but a little bit more hair detail on the image to the right. Here, it's identical. The only thing they added was the blur effect. As to here, this is an infamous shot actually where Goku has basically no eyes. They do show he has eyes closed in this image on the right. A lot more detail in his hair. Shot does not look that bad anymore. Still a little bit weird of a depth, I guess, to it, but not quite as bad as what it was before, definitely. And that looks like it's it for the images, guys. I know this was actually a lot longer of a video than I had anticipated it being. I know a lot of you guys have seen people do videos on these images, and I want to do my own, but I kind of want to set myself apart and kind of go in depth and analyze the artistic upgrades and animation improvements that I really haven't seen anyone else do. My good friends, Rhyme Style and Geekum have done their videos respectively. Go check them out if you want to hear their opinions on the animation improvements, all that good stuff. But hopefully you guys enjoy this video. I know it's a little bit long, and it's probably going to take a while to edit because I have so many jump cuts in here. But hopefully you guys enjoy this video. Thanks for watching, and let me know what you guys think of the animation improvements. Do you think they're good from what you've seen in this episode? Again, not bashing the animation quality here at all, guys. Just simply, showing it off, going in depth on it. It's definitely a big step up, and a lot of these are in between shots, so I think in motion it could look a lot better, definitely. But thank you all for watching this video, and I'll catch you later.